Horner's final decision made. Ties officially severed with Red Bull. But will he be on the grid in 2026? It's likely, and I'm going to tell you why and for which teams in this show. This is F1 Grandstand. I'm Tony Craig, and if you are an F1 fan, you are in the right place. Hit the subscribe button and the bell button now. Join the community and get involved. Let's get into it. So, of course, Christian Horner. Yes, he has options for 2026, but before we talk about all of that, we need to get you up to speed with what's just happened at Red Bull. So obviously Horner was stripped of all of his duties following the British Grand Prix in July. Since then, the terms of his full exit are being negotiated. Now, those negotiations have been agreed in terms of his payout, and Red Bull and its associated companies have officially cut all ties with Christian Horner because Horner held directorial positions across 3 UK-based companies. He served as the CEO of the F1 racing team and Red Bull Technologies Limited and Red Bull Powertrains, which is the Red Bull Powertrains company that was established when the team decided to manufacture its own engines for the first time in preparation for the 2026 season, along with their partnership with Ford. Now, however, these final decisions sever all final ties with Horner. Companies House filings received on Thursday confirm that Horner has been dismissed as a director of all 3 companies involved in the operations of the F1 team. But here's the interesting part. The filings also reveal the appointment of a new director to replace him, namely Stefan Salzer. He's the global head of human resources at the racing team's Austria-based parent company, Red Bull GmbH. Oliver Mintzlaff, as CEO of Red Bull's corporate projects and new investments, he effectively heads the company's motorsports team. But here's the interesting bit. Villain number 1, Helmut Marko. You see, this is interesting because Helmut Marko is now the sole director of Red Bull Racing. Serves as an advisor to the main Red Bull company on its F1 endeavours. Now, let's join up these dots. Helmut Marko, who was or is a key figure in the decision to sack Horner, he is now the sole director of Red Bull Racing. Now, you've got to remember that bit. It's important. So this is what Helmut Marko said after Horner's sacking. He said this was the result of various factors, but above all, the performance wasn't quite as good as it could have been. Management decided they wanted to steer the ship in a different direction. Everyone else, of course, has to agree to that and look forward, and I am looking forward. But at the same time, we do appreciate, of course, those 20 years, and especially from my side, the 10, 11 years that I've been part of Red Bull. You'd expect that type of comment, but this is where it gets fascinating. Fortunately, we were able to bring Laurent Mekies into the family. His responsibilities will be significantly reduced, with the main focus being on racing. So Laurent Mekies, the new team principal, has significantly less control than Horner. So who has more control? Oh yeah, Helmut Marko, you are now the sole director of Red Bull Racing. So you do. You have more control than anybody at Red Bull Racing because you're the sole director, because Horner was the CEO. So really, you could say that Horner had control. They bring in Laurent Mekies, who now doesn't have control. Helmut Marko, this did you ever watch what was it? The X-Files, and they had the cigarette smoking man. Do you remember that shadowy figure? That's Helmut Marko. Except now he has all the control of Red Bull Racing. It feels a little bit like the king is dead. Long live the king. But what about Return of the King? Yeah, that is a Lord of the Rings reference. So those options for Horner's return in 2026. Let's get into those. So, hi Gemma, by the way. I can see you in the chat. Nice to have you with us. Yeah, so those options for Horner going into 2026. This guy's Graham Loudon. He's currently the team boss at Cadillac. Now, in December 2024, it was announced that Loudon would become the team principal of Cadillac for 2026. But his F1 credentials are not good. He was the CEO at Marussia Racing, and then it turned into Virgin F1 team over 10 years ago. And they were the worst F1 teams on the grid. Seriously, they never won anything. Awful. Zero. And now we've been hearing that Cadillac have been courting Horner because Cadillac have got money. Okay, they're coming into F1 with a budget. They chose this guy in 2024. Horner's obviously not available, and now you get the opportunity to get Horner with his pedigree. Because you got to remember, he was at Red Bull from 2005. He got the first job as team principal, and he built that into a winning team from zero. What did Cadillac need to do from ground zero? Build a winning team. This guy, unfortunately, does not have the pedigree to do that. So what is possible and likely is that if Horner decides to further those discussions with Cadillac, they're going to have to move Graham Loudon into some sort of advisory board position. Oh no, it's another Helmut Marko potentially. But yeah, so Cadillac have been trying to court Horner, but here's the thing. Horner wants to win, and he wants to win quickly, and he wants a team that can do it. Sergio Perez has just agreed a 2-year deal at Cadillac. Sergio Perez and Christian Horner probably aren't on the best of terms, considering the way Perez left Red Bull and Horner gave him the boot. So that would be a very difficult relationship to manage. I don't know how that would work out, but that's the situation. And that's one of the rumours of how Horner could be returning to the grid in 2026. But here's the other thing. Horner wants to become a team owner. He wants an equity stake in a team. And he's happy to put his own money in. Which leads me nicely into the more likely option. So, his old mate, Flavio Briatore, special advisor at Alpine, big friends. I've mentioned this before on a couple of other shows. Flavio Briatore and Christian Horner are big friends. Now, Horner's also rumoured to be getting around 100 million as his settlement from Red Bull because he had a contract up until, I think it's 2029, 15 million a year. So I think he's going to get 100 million. Now, the reason why Alpine's the most likely, Gemma in the chat, couples counselling, yeah, something like that. Yeah, so the reason why Alpine's the most likely is because they want to sell a 20% stake in Alpine F1, Alpine Racing. And they've put a price tag on that at 300 million. They valued the racing team, Alpine, at 1.5 billion. So they want to sell a 20% stake for 300 million. It's basically because Renault, the manufacturer themselves, their share price is down over 20%. They are struggling. They've had to close down their engine development program. So Alpine are going to be running the Mercedes power plant next season. And Flavio Briatore, as much as he doesn't want to be team principal, even though he's sort of acting in that role right now and running things, him and Horner go way back. And he will help facilitate an equity purchase for Horner. Now, we know if Horner walks away with 100 million for Red Bull, which is what we're thinking, that's what it's going to be. He's 200 million short to buy a 20% stake. But that doesn't mean he can't go in with somebody else. Now, there was a rumor about Bernie Ecclestone, because he's a big friend of Horner, and it's actually Bernie Ecclestone's relationship with Horner that got him his team principal role at Red Bull back in 2005. They go way back. But Bernie is, 94 years old. And he's not interested in spending his money on, he's come out and said it, I don't want to own a racing team, but he does back Horner. So, but Horner is very well liked. He's very well connected, and that's the deal he's working on. And Pierre Gasly, great driver. Christian Horner, you can't argue, one of the best team principals of the last 20 years. Alpine are in trouble, the worst team on the grid. They're coming back with a new car, 2026, with a brand new platform. If they want to improve, they need someone to lead that team. Flavio doesn't want the job full time, even though his team principal days back in the 90s were extraordinary. Google it if you don't know. Look at his time at Benetton and Renault. He won world championships in cars that shouldn't win world championships. But there was always controversy around this guy. So he's not going to come back as team principal. And Horner's only going to come back with an equity stake. So when we talked about the opportunity at Cadillac, are they going to give him an equity stake in Cadillac Racing? I don't know. They'd have to. They'd have to if they want to get him. Because Horner wants to win. But would he sacrifice having to develop a worse car, which, let's face it, Cadillac's first year in Formula One is probably going to be horrible. Horner wants to be battling it out at the top with Toto Wolff and Fred Vasseur. In order for him to make that sacrifice, he needs ownership of that team, a percentage ownership. If Cadillac were prepared to give it to him, then it's a genuine conversation. We could see him running that team, Cadillac, in 2026, and Loden moved into some sideways position on the board. But more likely, honestly, is Alpine. We know they're in talks. We know my man on the ground, Tubby George, has already let us know that there have been conversations with a consortium headed up by Horner to buy a stake in Alpine. That's the word on the street. Well, he's got 10 races to get it done if he wants to be on the grid in 2026. But those are the two teams. That Horner is actually in line to take over. And those are the reasons. So it's going to be Cadillac reunited with Sergio Perez. And as an owner of that team, he's going to have to deal with that and make that relationship work. But the car is not going to be as competitive. The Alpine's got a chance of being much more competitive in 2026. It really has. It's got Gasly. They've got the number 2 seat, which is a question mark. Some people are even saying that Colapinto might keep his seat because he brings a lot of money to the team. I don't think that's a good idea. I think Bottas is going to be the second seat at Cadillac because that would be the sensible move. But that's the situation. That is the situation. It's going to be Cadillac or Alpine. But I would say 80% more likely it's going to be Alpine. But what's the real exciting part of this news? We're going to get to see Horner back on the grid, causing trouble, being controversial, being the protagonist in the story, bringing that colour to Formula One. And as much as I'm not a fan of Horner, I'm a fan of the entertainment he's going to bring. You know what I mean? I hope you are too. The grid has been more boring without him. So yeah, that is your Friday night quick news. Thanks for getting in the chat, Gemma. I can see you there. Yeah, Gemma, the money's burning a hole in their pocket. Or are you saying that Christian Horner's payout of 100 million is going to be burning a hole in his pocket? Well, there's no better way to waste your money than in Formula One, baby. No, actually, do you know what? Formula One's in a boom. Growing in America, growing around the world. It's a great time to be in the Formula One business. And actually, if Horner did buy into that Alpine team and he took them from where they are now, dead last, all the way up to even a P5 or P4, possibly, best of the rest, as I like to call it, well then he's making money on his investment. And it's not unheard of. With brand new regulations, the big regulation changes, new platforms are being built, new era of Formula One cars, it's not unreasonable to think that some of these mid teams are going to improve to become competitive. I've said it over and over again. Aston Martin are the one to watch in 2026. But I can tell you right now, I can't see Aston Martin coming in for Christian Horner in 2026, but it has got my brain going, actually. What I know of Lawrence Stroll, Adrian Newey's already there. Could you imagine if Lawrence Stroll went all out to get Christian Horner at Aston Martin back with Adrian Newey? The problem with that is, this is another Tubby George inside information. Tubby George told me that Adrian Newey would never work with Christian Horner again. Like, that relationship is not, it's polite, it's politically correct outwardly, but apparently the Newey-Horner relationship would not work at Aston Martin. And obviously, I agree with Lawrence Stroll. If I had to choose one of them, I want the guy who's going to design my car over the guy to run the team. Adrian Newey is the difference in Formula One. More accolades than anyone else. 25 titles, 12 championship, 12 world, I might be slightly wrong, 12 world constructor titles, 13 driver titles. Adrian Newey is the MVP of Formula One. So it would be a very hard sell to get those two back together in an Aston Martin team. So if you've just joined us, welcome to F1 Grandstand. Thanks for joining the show. You can rewind and watch it. We've been talking about the news about Christian Horner. Final ties severed with Red Bull. He has been removed from his directorial roles from all three companies, Red Bull Racing, the tech company, and the engine manufacturing company. And he is in talks to come back to the grid. It's going to be Alpine as an owner, a percentage owner, or it's going to be Cadillac. But they're going to need to give him a big deal to make him the team principal over at Cadillac. And also, it's a bit of a problem. Well, not really a problem for Loudon, because they brought Loudon in at the end of in December 2024. Obviously, who was available then as a team principal? Cadillac need to get going. They're trying to build a team ready for 2026. It's almost like somebody who's had some experience in F1. He was the CEO at Marussia F1 and Virgin F1, which then became the Virgin F1 racing team. They were awful. They didn't manage to do anything. I'm not even sure if they scored any points. But if you're trying to build an F1 team, you need somebody to get the wheels moving. So maybe Loudon moves on a sideways move to some sort of advisor role. And they makes way for Horner. But Cadillac like to win. Cadillac have got money, and it's an option, but it would have to be a mega deal, and it would have to be an equity stake for Horner in Cadillac Racing. Simple as that. But only time will tell. So as it's Friday night, I don't want to take up all of your weekend. I just wanted to jump in with this news to give you something to mull on over the weekend. It's going to get exciting. Thank you so much for watching F1 Grandstand. Please make sure you like, comment, join the community, subscribe, and hit the bell so you can keep up to date. Honestly, it makes the biggest difference to the success of the channel. I'm so grateful. And I will be back on Monday evening, 8 o'clock, same time. Set a notification. I'm going to see you then. Ta-ta.